Welcome back. You are watching The Big Story. Quickly, my guest in studio still, Mr. Edward Kimakwa, the marine and fisheries expert from WWF, Professor James Njuru, the director of Chemfree, joining us from our City Centre studios, as well as Sylvester Kasuku, the CEO of Lapset. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. Still with you, Mr. Kasuku, you were talking about the impact that the Lapset project has on the blue economy. How do we expect the current dredging and construction of the 3 berths in Lamu to feed into the blue economy?
First and foremost, you are aware that the construction of Lamu Port does include dredging so that we can achieve a uniform depth of about 18 meters for the port channel, as well as the berthing area, the turning bay, and the anchorages. And as such, we are therefore creating that infrastructure that we need to tap what we would call the ocean resources. Number one, we know that seaborne trade is one of the largest global phenomena in terms of doing business, and that links various continents and subcontinents. And creating a platform in Lamu, therefore, at Lamu Port, therefore means that we are ready to do bigger business with different jurisdictions across the entire globe. At the same time, intertwining the construction of a deep water port of greater proportions together with an industrial base over 400 square kilometers, therefore means that we are equally embracing industrialization at a higher rate and in a bigger way as Kenya, and therefore taking a lead in Africa to champion the 4th industrial revolution in Africa, taking cognizance of the fact that ocean resources intertwined with infrastructure and industries is therefore the key to achieving the much desired growth that we are looking for. At that particular point, therefore, we are also cognizant of the fact that the Lapset, having a strong base from the ocean front, is going to contribute about 2 to 3% into our GDP by the year 2030. This therefore means that that big growth that we are looking for in terms of double digits is going to actually get a greater bolster from the Lapset Corridor program. Again, looking at in terms of creating jobs for our youths and diversifying our economy by expanding the width of our economic sectors, we are realizing, therefore, that the ocean front is again the one that is going to enable us to even tap the oil in Turkana area, as well as generate enough energy to power our industries, both in Kenya and in the region. So we are looking at a greater opportunity through Lapset to tap the blue economy in a bigger way. We know about the resort cities that we are going to develop in these particular areas.
All right.
We are aware of the urban areas, the cities. For example, we've already undertaken the master planning of the Lamu Port City, which is indeed a key cornerstone of progressing the tapping of the blue economy going forward.
All right. Professor James Njuru, according to the 2017 economic survey, the subsector of fisheries dropped by about 12.1% or thereabout from 2015 to 2016, and our fisheries industries has been seen to not be performing very well. What are some of the very specific things or strategies we are looking at doing to resuscitate this sector?
Once again, thank you very much. The drop in Kenya, mostly we depend on the export of fisheries from Lake Victoria, which contribute almost 90% of export, and mainly Nile Perch. And for the last couple of years, Nile Perch has been declining. What we are seeing now is we should now be diversifying and focusing more, especially now in the marine waters, whereby we have barely scratched the surface. As I said earlier on, we've estimated we can get up to 300,000 metric tons from the ocean. So what we should be doing as a government or as the peoples of Kenya, we should be investing more, especially in terms of data collection, which the government has been very, very gracious, especially by providing us enough capital to try and get information. And to this end, I would want first and foremost to thank our peers, Professor Michel Inteba, who has been very focused in terms of how we get data. Because without data, Wandela, we are not able to inform decision. Mm-hmm. We also need to invest more as Kenyans. Mm-hmm. We would want to see more Kenyans going to fish. Because what is happening in this what I talked about, which is almost 42% of our land mass, we barely have Kenyans big vessels there. It's mostly foreigners who are coming to fish in our waters. Mm. So this economy, or this Blue Economy Conference, will bring up some of these issues, and we expect now our own Kenyans who are able to invest in other areas like, let's say even handwear or other areas. Mm-hmm. Why can't they invest in fisheries? There's a lot of potential out there. I'm talking about something to do that, 100 billion in terms of fisheries alone. If you bring tourism, we're talking about another 100 billion. If you bring shipping, another 100 billion. We are talking about 300 billion Kenya shillings. Our economy, our budget now, Wandela, is about 300 trillion. 10% of this would come from the blue economy comfortably, and this would lower our borrowing. And at the end of the day, our children will not have to pay the burden of paying for this loan. So we need to invest, we need to get more information, and as Kenya Marine, we are mandated to get this information in terms of fisheries. Mm-hmm. We are supposed to be the clearinghouse in terms of blue economy. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kimakwa, as an expert, you talked about earlier the need to have a sustainable blueprint for our marine resources. I believe this conversation can be complete without talking about the water hyacinth menace at the Lake Victoria that continues to be a major challenge. How can we exploit this particular industry to ensure that the hyacinth is not a major stumbling block in terms of fishing, but as well use this particular weed constructively in various industries?
Thank you very much. I know what hyacinths, the other day I was just passing by the roundabout in the Westlands, and I saw some young men selling water hyacinth as a potted water plant. It was rather very unfortunate, and we can understand that some people in this country are not really very much aware of what hyacinth is all about. Mm-hmm. You may recall that Lake Victoria is one of the largest fresh lakes that we have in the world. And this problem of water hyacinth came not so many years ago. And you have seen it has caused a lot of impacts in terms of the ecosystem because it has contributed also to decline of some species. But of course, we have also seen some species that were initially that had disappeared. They came back. But nevertheless, it has been a challenge, and we have seen the government working through the support of other development partners like the European Union. They came up with what we call Lake Victoria Environment Management Program. Basically, the focus was to eliminate this weed, and we didn't have much results. Of course, they used a mechanical way of removing the weed from the lake by having some harvesters. Mm-hmm. Later on, they used biological agents by bringing some beetles to consume the weed. But we have seen some innovative ways of utilizing this weed by the local communities, especially the young people. They are using this weed to produce various handicrafts, and which they are selling to the people to make money. So rather than using all these sophisticated equipment and putting a lot of resources in terms of using this equipment, we are using young people getting into the lake, removing it, and converting this into some handicrafts. Some of them are making the chairs that they are selling to the people. They are making furniture. They are making even some interior material for house decorations and all this kind of stuff. Okay. So they have come up in small groups. Some of them are organized groups or associations, and I think they are doing some business out of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As we wind up, in the same breath, over the last 3 decades, the world has lost over half of its coral reef. This conversation cannot as well complete without us talking about the conservation of our reef. Talk to us about that quickly.
Yes, indeed, it's very true, and the coral reefs are very vital ecosystems. Most of our marine life, including fisheries, coral reefs are habitats for marine life. Secondly, we have also to appreciate that even our coastal tourism, most of our tourists, they go to the marine protected areas where they enjoy the beauty that our biodiversity, especially in the coral reef ecosystem, that provides. So we have experienced in the past years, 50% of the coral reefs have disappeared. And if it's going to be business as usual, by 2030, we are going to see 90% of what is remaining will have disappeared. From estimates, if you look at the entire Western Indian Ocean region, about 2.4% of the whole area in terms of the marine is under some form of protection, like the marine protected areas or conservation areas. That's what we are seeing. So what needs to happen right now is we have to up the game and work very closely with the local communities to conserve and protect these coral reefs. Next week, we are going to be in Zanzibar as an organization globally to see how we are going to conserve the coral reefs of the world. We have a program that we have developed. We want to bring these corals back and regenerate. We have seen some efforts working with scientists also to see how we can do coral reef planting. Okay. So we have some of these innovative activities that we are trying to work closely with the governments and local communities as well as the scientists in the region.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. That is the big story. The Blue Economy Conference continues tomorrow, and on the sidelines, of course, conversations around all that we've talked about, the water hyacinth on Lake Victoria, security around the ports or our waters. We're talking about the conservation of the coral reef, as well as President Uhuru Kenyatta just the other day launched the Coast Guard service. We'll be looking at what this would mean in terms of ensuring that Kenya fully exploits its blue economy. My guests tonight were Sylvester Kasuku, the CEO of the LAPSET project, Mr. Edward Kimakwa, the marine and fisheries expert from WWF, or World Wildlife Fund, as well as Professor James Njeru, the director of the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, or KEMFRI. Thank you for joining us tonight. That is a big story. My name is Akisa Wandera. Good evening.